Hi, so in this video we're going to look at casting and ranges of variables. And we already learned in our last lesson, last lessons about the scanner class. And in this program I've already created a new scanner object that is called keyboard. And we're going to prompt the user to enter 3 test scores as integers, pressing enter after each. And then we'll capture those 3 integers and store them as the variables first, second, and third. So if I want to average these 3 test scores together, then I am probably going to have a decimal. So let's go ahead and call this double the average of the scores. And if I take the first plus the second plus the third score and then divide those by 3, that would give me an average. Okay. Now we know from previous videos as well that an int plus an int plus an int divided by an int is going to return an int. Right? If there is a decimal, which there's likely to be if we're averaging 3 integers together, that decimal is going to be truncated. So let's go ahead and look at that output. So we'll say your average test score is, and then we'll concatenate that with our variable average. Okay, so we're going to be anticipating that we get an int stored as average, which means regardless of what the actual decimal result would be, it's going to truncate. And then since we're storing that int result as a double, it's going to tack on a 0.0 at the end. So let's go ahead and compile. And then we'll run. So here's my prompt to enter the 3 test scores. So let's say we have a 75, a 90, and an 82. And there it tells me my average test score is 82.0. Now in division, if you have integers divided by integers, the result is going to be an integer, even if you store it as a double, as we just saw. If I want to make sure that I don't lose any accuracy, I could cast what's in the parentheses here as a double. Okay, so first, second plus third is going to get added together, cast as a double, and then a double divided by an integer is a double. So if we do it this way by casting that first plus second plus third, the result of that sum as a double, we should not lose any of the decimal accuracy that we want in that average. So let's enter those same 3 scores, 75, 90, and 82. And this time, right, we can see instead of the truncated integer with a 0.0, we have maintained that accuracy in the average, 82.33, repeating. And now that conversion that we did in line 12, changing an integer type to a double type, that's called a widening conversion. Okay. If we were to cast the other way, so say we wanted to truncate this instead, then I could say int truncated average. Oops, don't want that. Parentheses. Truncated average equals, and then I could take my average variable from above, which is the double, and I can try to narrow by casting that double as an int. And then we can output that result. So your truncated average test score is, and then this will be truncated average. Okay, let's go ahead and compile and run. So our 3 test scores, let's try something new this time. So we'll do a 55, a 72, and a 99. Okay, so there's our average as a double, 75.33, and we achieve that, remember, as widening, doing a widening conversion of the sum of these 3 ints to a double, so that we'd get a double in the division. Then we did a narrowing conversion by taking that double and casting it as an int, and that truncated the decimal value and then returned the int as the truncated average. Okay, another thing we might want to do is round our average, and so to round, okay, we're going to also use some casting. So let's take this int rounded average, and instead of casting the average directly as an int, which truncates it as opposed to rounding, we're going to first take our double average and we're going to add 0.5 to that as a double. And then we can cast that result as an int. Okay. So if we go ahead and output that result, oops, I lost my S, there we go. Then our rounded average is, and we'll output the rounded average. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile. And we'll run. Okay, so let's make our 3 test scores this time be a 95, we'll do a 57, and then a 66. Okay, so we can see the double with all the decimal accuracy. The average was 72.66 repeating. Then our truncated average, that's where we just chop the decimal off, right? That was 72. The rounded average, where we took the average plus 0.5 and then cast that as an int, right? That plus 0.5, if the decimal value had been below 0.5, truncating wouldn't have changed the value. But because the 72.66 repeating is over 0.5, adding 0.5 to that double moves it up to 73, so that when we truncate, now it's a rounded. So it's rounding up if we have a value, a decimal value that's 1/2 or higher. Okay? And then it would just truncate if our decimal value was below 1/2. Okay, and then let's review real quickly print output formatting. So if we want this decimal, instead of being 0.66666 repeating, if we want to change that to output just 2 decimal places, we're going to change print line to printf. Okay, and then in our string literal here, after the is, we're going to put a % and then the number of decimal places we want. So we're going to output 2 decimal places, and then the variable f. Then we want to go to a new line when we are done with this output. So we're going to do /n for new line. And then instead of concatenating with a plus sign, we're going to put a comma, and then the variable that gets inserted in here where that f is. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile and run. So our three test scores, we have a 95, a 57, a 66. Oh, and my new line didn't register. Oh, because I have my slash going the wrong way. So we wanted that to be an escape sequence. So let's go ahead and run that again. Now that we fixed it. Okay, so test scores are 95, 57, 66, and there we go. So our average now has been rounded. Instead of 0.6 repeating, it's rounded to 0.67. And then another application of casting, we can do a system out print line. And let's say we wanted to tell them their letter grade. So your letter grade for this marking period is, okay, and then remember an A in Unicode, a capital A is a 65. Now to get that to come out as a letter, I'm going to cast that number 65 as a char, as a character. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, so since they're going to get an A, let's give them some high test scores. So there's their letter grade for this marking period, and we took that number 65, the ASCII value for A, and we cast